Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Learn English Daily. I'm Alex. Thank you for spending a little time with me today. I have a question for you. When was the last time you almost gave up on something? Not forever, just for one day. Maybe it was going to the gym. Maybe it was reading a book. Maybe it was learning English. I think we've all had days like that. A few weeks ago, I had one of those days myself. I woke up, made a cup of coffee, sat down at my desk, opened my notebook, looked at the page for a few seconds. Then I closed it again. I wasn't busy. I wasn't sick. I simply didn't feel like doing anything. So I picked up my coffee and walked to the window. The street outside was already busy. People were walking to work. A man was walking his dog. A young woman was talking on the phone. A little boy was laughing while trying to catch a pigeon. Life was moving. And there I was, standing by the window, wondering why I had no motivation. You know what you should do? But you don't feel like doing it. It's a strange feeling. And if you're learning English, you've probably experienced it more than once. Some days you can't wait to practice. You listen to podcasts. You learn new words. You feel excited. Then another day comes. You look at your English book, and suddenly it feels much heavier than yesterday. The book didn't change. You changed, and that's perfectly normal. For a long time, I believed motivated people were different. I thought they woke up every morning full of energy, ready to learn, ready to improve, ready to work hard. Then I met someone who completely changed my mind. His name was Daniel. Daniel wanted to learn English because he dreamed of working in another country. He wasn't the smartest student in the class. He didn't have the best pronunciation. He made mistakes all the time, sometimes very funny mistakes. But there was something special about him. He never disappeared. Every week, he came back. Some days he was excited. Some days he looked tired. Some days he told me, "Alex, I don't think I'm getting any better." I always gave him the same answer. That's okay, because I knew something he didn't know yet. Progress is often invisible. One day, Daniel came to class looking happier than usual. Before I could say hello, he smiled and said, "Alex, something strange happened yesterday." I asked him what happened. He said, "I was watching a movie. I wasn't really paying attention. Then suddenly I realized. I understood a whole conversation. I didn't translate anything. I just understood it." He looked at me and laughed. I don't even know when that happened. Neither did I. Because real progress is usually quiet. It doesn't knock on your door. It doesn't send you a message. It grows slowly, one small day at a time. That conversation stayed in my mind for a long time. Not because Daniel became fluent. He didn't, not yet. But because he finally saw something that had been happening for months. Every lesson, every mistake, every sentence, his English had been growing little by little. He just couldn't see it. Maybe that's happening to you right now. Maybe your English is improving in ways you don't notice yet. Maybe your brain already understands more than you think. Can I ask you to do something? Think about 6 months ago. Were you able to understand this podcast as easily as you do today? Maybe not. Maybe today feels a little easier. Maybe you recognize more words. Maybe you don't panic every time you hear English. Those small changes matter. Sometimes we forget to celebrate them because We're too busy looking at what we still can't do. We're always looking at the mountain. We forget to turn around and see how far we've already climbed. I still remember learning my first foreign language. Every evening, I would sit at a small desk in my room. I had one notebook, one dictionary, and a cup of tea that usually became cold before I finished studying. Some evenings were wonderful. Everything made sense. I learned new words. I understood new expressions. I felt unstoppable. Other evenings were completely different. I read the same sentence 5 times. I forgot words I had learned the day before. I wondered if I was wasting my time. Looking back now, I smile when I remember those days, because I thought progress should feel fast. I thought every week should feel different. But learning doesn't work like that. It works quietly, like the sunrise. You don't see the sun moving, but little by little, the whole sky changes. Learning English is like watching the sunrise. You don't notice the change every minute. One day, everything is brighter. That's why I want to ask you for one small favor. Stop measuring your English every day. Measure it every few months. That's when you'll really see the difference. Because growth needs time. Just like a tree, just like a friendship, just like trust. The best things in life grow slowly. And maybe that's exactly why they last. So today, I don't want you to promise me that you'll study for 3 hours tomorrow. I don't want you to promise you'll memorize 100 new words. I only want you to promise one simple thing. When tomorrow comes, spend a few minutes with English. Listen to one conversation. Read one page. Learn one sentence. That's enough. Because one sentence tomorrow and another sentence the next day, session that never happens again. So before we continue, I'd like you to think about one question. Why did you start learning English? Don't answer quickly. Think about it. Your answer is more important than you realize. Because on the days when motivation disappears, your reason is what brings you back. Sometimes I think we make learning harder than it needs to be. Not because English is difficult, but because we're always looking ahead. We're always thinking about the day we'll speak fluently, the day we'll understand every movie, the day we'll have a long conversation without stopping. Those are wonderful goals. Today is simply today, and today's job is much smaller. Today's job is just to learn a little more than yesterday, nothing more. Can I tell you about another person I met? Her name was Sarah. Sarah loved English. She watched videos every evening. She wrote new words in a notebook. She listened to podcasts while cooking dinner. One day she said something that made me smile. Alex, I think my English is getting worse. I asked her why she felt that way. She said, the more I learn, the more mistakes I notice. Does that sound familiar? Maybe it does. When you begin learning English, you don't notice many mistakes. You simply don't know enough. But later, something interesting happens. Your ears become better. Your brain notices more. Suddenly, you hear your own mistakes. That can feel frustrating, but it's actually good news. It means you're improving. Imagine learning to play the piano. At first, every song sounds difficult. Then one day, your teacher says, listen carefully. Now, you hear mistakes you never heard before. The music didn't change. Your ears changed. English works exactly the same way. The better you become, the more you notice, and that's something to celebrate, not something to fear. I still remember the first time I understood an English joke. It wasn't a difficult joke. In fact, it was very simple. But when I laughed, I realized something. I hadn't translated it. I understood it naturally. It lasted only a few seconds, but I never forgot that moment. Progress often arrives quietly. It doesn't always feel exciting. Sometimes it's just one sentence, one conversation, one smile, one moment when you realize, I understood that. That's why I think we should celebrate them more often. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you celebrated your progress? Not your perfect English, your progress. Maybe you understood a new word. Maybe you introduced yourself with confidence. Maybe you left your first comment in English. Maybe you're listening to this podcast without subtitles. Those things matter. Very few people wake up one morning speaking another language. Most people arrive there one ordinary day at a time. That's why I don't like the word overnight. People love overnight success. But languages don't work overnight. Friendships don't grow overnight. Neither does confidence. Confidence grows after many small promises you keep to yourself. I'll listen today, then you listen. I'll practice tomorrow. Then you practice. Little by little, you begin trusting yourself, and that trust becomes confidence. I think that's much stronger than motivation, because motivation changes. Confidence stays. There are evenings when I don't feel like opening a book. Instead of forcing myself to study for an hour, I make a cup of tea. I sit somewhere comfortable and I listen. Sometimes that's all I do. I simply listen. No pressure, no notebook, no dictionary, just English. You know what's interesting? Some of my best learning happened on those quiet evenings, not because I was working harder, but because I was enjoying the language. I think we sometimes forget that languages are meant to be enjoyed. They're not only for exams. They're not only for work. Languages connect people. They tell stories. They make us laugh. They help us understand different lives. When you remember that, learning feels lighter. Here's something I'd like you to try this week. Choose one moment every day that already belongs to you. Maybe while making coffee. Maybe while washing the dishes. Maybe while walking outside. Don't create extra time. Use the time you already have. Listen to English during those moments. Not because you have to, because you can. Small routines are powerful, almost invisible, but they slowly become part of who you are. You know, when I think about Daniel, the student I told you about at the beginning of today's episode, I remember something else he said. Several months after that conversation, he came to see me again. This time he looked different, more relaxed, more confident. He smiled and said, Alex, I finally understand what you meant. I asked him, what do you mean? He laughed. I kept waiting to feel motivated, but motivation didn't change me. My routine changed me. That sentence has stayed with me ever since. Not because it was beautiful, because it was true. His English improved because he stopped chasing motivation. He started building habits, simple habits, habits he could keep even on difficult days. Maybe that's the idea I'd like to leave with you today. Don't wait for the perfect mood. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start with what you have. Start where you are. And trust the process. One conversation, one podcast, one page. One sentence. That's enough. One day, you'll look back at this moment. You'll remember listening to this episode, and you'll smile. Not because today's conversation changed your English overnight, but because it became one more small step on a much bigger journey, and every journey is built the same way. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I truly hope this conversation gave you a little more confidence. If it did, I'd love to hear from you. Write one sentence in English in the comments. Tell me why you're learning English. Your reason might inspire someone else to keep going. And if you'd like to spend more quiet moments like this together, don't forget to subscribe to Learn English Daily. Every episode is another chance to listen, another chance to speak, another chance to become a little more confident than yesterday. I'm Alex. Take care of yourself. Keep listening, keep speaking, and remember, you don't need to be perfect. You only need to keep going. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, my friend.